Funded by the European Union and the Inter-American Development Bank in partnership with the private sector organization of Jamaica.
What can a little germs do?
Pink eye running belly, even flu. Germs can make them happen to you.
Put germs on our manners with these. Cover your mouth when you cough and sneeze. Always wash your hand with water and soap. Keep dirty hands from your eyes and your nose and your mouth. You don't want to be sick, take care. Practice every day, no germs around here. A message from the Ministry of Health.
Peace is a choice we make every day. When we come together with love and understanding, we create a future free of violence and fear. Let's stand united, build bridges, and nurture hope for our children and our communities.
Join your big sister Raquel as she reintroduces the cast of Vibrations and their educational adventures to the screen. See Ronson and the gang experience the world of firsthand through interviews and interactions. Vibrations, where kids are taught about the world from someone they can relate to. Join us every Friday at 3:30 p.m. to hang out with your big sister Raquel and the kids of Vibrations. Right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.
Dengue is ordinarily a mild disease. Persons may get a fever, headache, joint and muscle pains. The illness is often resolved through rest and adequate hydration along with paracetamol to treat the accompanying fever. However, on occasions the illness can progress to severe dengue, which can result in organ failure, bleeding, and severe fluid depletion that can lead to shock and even death. Therefore, it is important for persons who are experiencing fever, vomiting, severe abdominal pain, bleeding under the skin, feeling very weak, or getting confused to seek immediate attention. Let us work together to protect ourselves against dengue.
Jamaica, I can help you protect our citizens.
Jamaica Eye will play a part in increasing your public safety.
Jamaica Eye is part of an island-wide network of camera surveillance systems designed to increase the safety of you, our citizens. If you have a camera system outside your home or office facing a public space, log on to jamaicai.gov.jm today. Jamaica Eye, we're all connected. The Ministry of National Security, creating a safer and prosperous Jamaica.
Let's explore wild wonders at the San Diego Zoo.
Drop by on Sundays at 11:30 a.m. and Mondays at 2 p.m. to dive into the fascinating world of exotic animals on the People's Station.
Every year, the Jamaican Parliament approves billions of our taxes to be spent on goods and services provided by the private sector. Everything from pens to power plants, cleaning services to construction are obtained through a process called public procurement. But who funds this process? Citizens do. And we want our taxes to be spent wisely. When we talk about public procurement, there's a critical concept called value for money. We hear it in the Parliament all the time, but what does it really mean? Some think value for money means choosing the cheapest option, but it's more than that. For example, a community needs a new bridge, and the government receives bids from 3 companies. Company A offers to build it for $10 million in 18 months with a 50-year lifespan. Company B wants $12 million to finish in 12 months with a 75-year lifespan. Company C asks for $8 million, needs 24 months with a 25-year lifespan. Company B actually offers the best value for money. To determine that, we look for 4 crucial factors: economy, efficiency, effectiveness, and equity. Let's explore what each means. For economy, we must look beyond the upfront price and consider the full lifetime costs to maintain the bridge. Cheaper options could lead to frequent and expensive repairs. We get efficiency if the bridge is built within budget and on time, with no waste of materials. To achieve this, we need the best team, and clear criteria helps the government to pick the best proposal. Effectiveness looks at whether the government achieves its goal. This could require a community needs assessment to ensure the bridge will reduce transport costs and travel time, withstand the annual flooding with little disturbance to plant and animal life. Finally, equity. This is about fairness, satisfying the different needs of the community. The bridge design considers not just cars and pedestrians, but is sensitive to the needs of the elderly, the disabled community, and children. So when we're talking about value for money, don't just ask how much it did cost. Ask, what are we truly getting for our money? The cheapest option today can become the most expensive mistake tomorrow. So from now on, let's ask the right questions for Jamaica land we love, Jamaica land we own, and Jamaica land we run well.
Are you an entrepreneur producing an excellent Jamaican product or service? Did you know you can earn hard currency and more significant returns by exporting? Contact the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce to help propel your business along the export lane.
Everything you can produce, the Jamaicans overseas want it. We're not going to get rich by just bringing down the debt. We're going to get rich by exporting a lot more. So grow exports, create job opportunities, drive economic growth through exports to make Jamaica a richer and much more prosperous country.
Peace begins with us. Every act of kindness, every step towards understanding brings us closer to a brighter tomorrow. Let's choose unity, compassion, and hope. Together, we can build a future where peace reigns.
Brighter tomorrow starting today.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Your government is empowering you through education, training, and development. That is why we have removed all fees for every Jamaican accessing training through the Heart NSTA Trust. So, whatever you desire training in, food and hospitality, beauty and cosmetology, housekeeping and hotel management, welding, carpentry, masonry, or any of the dozens of programs Heart offers, you can enroll completely free and change your life. We are building Jamaica.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Immerse yourself in the power of the word. PBCJ brings you Word Power, Sundays at 6 a.m. Tune in and be blessed.
Yo, babes, why me I call you so much time and I not get you? Sorry.
Business of this country. We thank you for the persons here who are working on behalf of this country. Lord Jesus, as we go through today's discussions, let them be honest, truthful, and bring clarity to whatever it is that we're discussing. Father God, guide these proceedings today as we go forth. Amen.
Thank you very much. Apologies for absence. We have apologies from members Morrison and Main. In terms of my opening remarks, let me welcome the AG's Department, Ministry of Finance, the Office of the Prime Minister, and the ODPM staff who are here, and the parliamentary team as well. Rocky, do you go by Major General or is it Ambassador, now that you're retired?
I go by Rocky Mead Chair, but I think Ambassador is the more current
designation
of the titles.
All right,
although all are applicable. Thank you, sir.
Let me welcome you here. This might be the first time you're coming here, and you probably don't want to come back again. So Let me invite you to introduce the team that is here with you from the OPM and the ODPM team.
Thank you so much, Chair and members of the Public Accounts Committee. Good morning. Would you like me to make an opening comment,
Not
Chair,
yet.
or just to introduce
I'm going to come
the
to
team?
that, but just do the introductions first.
Thank you,
and
Chair.
then I'll invite you to do that.
So, Chair, I'm leading the team as the Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister. With me is Chief Technical Director Kerry Chambers, Ms. Peter Gay Rookwood, the Senior Assistant Attorney General in the Office of the Prime Minister, Colonel Murphy Price, Principal Director, National Resilience and Continuity of Governance Branch, and Ms. Crystal Scott, Data Protection Officer in the Office of the Prime Minister. From the Office of Disaster Preparedness, we have Commander Alvin Gale, the Director General, to my right, leading his team, and his team consists of Ms. Nikita Dobbs, Director, Finance and Accounts, Ms. Kiana Gordon, Data Protection Officer, Ms. Diane McFarlane, Legal Officer, Mr. Desmond Bent, Information Systems Manager. And we also have Chair from the Jamaica Defense Force, Colonel Anthony Gregory, Inspector General, who is the lead person who supports the ODPERM from the JDF.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McAdam, could you just introduce the team from the Auditor General's Department?
Thank you, Chair, and morning again to members. For the record, I am Marlon McAdam, Acting Auditor General, and I'm supported today by Mr. Christopher Hare, Deputy Auditor General, Ms. Nicaria Stewart, Acting Deputy Auditor General, Mrs. Rachel Bailey Thomas, Principal Auditor, Ms. Audra Williams Brown, Principal Auditor, and Directors of Audit, Shanaki Hall Campbell, Shamar Richards, Patrick Peart, Camille Simons, and Roshane Scott, Auditor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart, you just want to introduce yourself? I know there are some representatives from Parliament who are here.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. I'm Ms. Tiffany Stewart, Senior Legislative Counsel for the Parliament.
The gentleman beside you? You're from, oh, you're also Auditor General. Okay, and I know there are two ladies in the back. Just introduce yourselves, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Hamilton. I'm the Senior Research Officer.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Blake?
Morning, Chairman and members and colleagues. Hope Blake, Deputy Financial Secretary, Minister of Finance, and supporting me today is Sasha Lawrence Rose, Principal Director for Enterprise Risk Management Policy.
Okay, thank you. We have the minutes. They were circulated electronically. The Parliament has indicated that they have had a challenge printing them, but I hope members had an opportunity to review them electronically. And I'm going to ask if there are any corrections, omissions with the minutes. This was the meeting held on June 16th, 2026. Any corrections, amendments? If not, could I have a motion for the confirmation? Member Miller moves, seconded by Member Bunting. Thank you. In terms of matters arising, coming out of the meeting on the 16th of June, there was a matter related to the CEO of the University Hospital of the West Indies and a follow-up report that the Public Accounts Committee needs to send to the Speaker. I'm going to invite Ms. Stewart, the Senior Legislative Counsel, to indicate the process and what is required of the PAC to follow through on that matter. Ms. Stewart.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning again, members. As stated in the previous meeting held on June 16, 2026, and as reflected on page 5 of the minutes of even date, I indicated that further review would be undertaken by legal in regards to the legal and administrative procedures to be undertaken to enforce a sanction against the Chief Executive Officer of the University Hospital of the West Indies, Mr. Fitzgerald Mitchell, who failed to appear despite being summoned on June 8, 2026. No, the standing orders of the House of Representatives and the Senate and House of Representatives Powers and Privileges Act does not explicitly define or codify in detail the procedure for dealing with a witness who fails to appear after being summoned and subsequently in contempt of Parliament. That is encapsulated, the procedure to be undertaken is encapsulated in Parliamentary and Constitutional Convention, as well as the authoritative procedural guide of the Erskine May. A legal opinion was done in regards to the matter, submitted to the clerk, as well as a copy submitted to the chairman outlining the steps. So let's get into the steps quickly. Now, a parliamentary committee, step 1, has no direct legal authority to penalize an absent witness. If a witness refuses to attend in response to a summons or to produce the documents required, as in the instant case, the committee is mandated to prepare and submit a special report to the House, reporting the refusal as a contempt of Parliament. That is in accordance with Standing Order 80, paragraph 3 of the Standing Orders of the House of Representatives, which states, a select committee may make a special report relating to its powers, functions, and proceedings on any matter that it thinks fit to bring to the notice of the House. Now, the report must outline in detail that a formal order for attendance was issued and was willfully disobeyed, the details of the issued summons, proof of proper service of the summons, and the witness's absence without a reasonable excuse. Additionally, to that report must be appended the supporting documentation. Within our instant case, let me give you an example of the documentation to be attached to the report. 1, letter of invitation from the committee clerk to the PAC to Mr. Fitzgerald Mitchell, dated April 15, 2026. 2, copy of email from the chairman of the Board of Management of the University Hospital of the West Indies, dated April 16, 2026, confirming Mr. Fitzgerald Mitchell attendance to the PAC scheduled for April 28, 2026. 3, proof of service of the committee's letter of invitation by the UHII. 4, copy of email dated April 24, 2026, from the chairman of the board of the UHII to the committee clerk advising Mr. Fitzgerald Mitchell non-attendance to the PSA meeting scheduled for April 28, 2026, based on his counsel's advice. 5, letter dated May 4, 2026, from Mr. Fitzgerald Mitchell's counsel addressed to the chairman of the PAC. Letter dated May 11, 2026, from the chairman of the PAC to Mr. Fitzgerald Mitchell counsel. You'll also have a copy of the minutes of the PAC dated April 28, in which it reflects the decision of the committee collectively to issue a summons in accordance with the Senate and House of Representatives Powers and Privileges Act. Also, you'll have attached to the report a copy of the summons dated June 8, 2026, as well as a copy of the affidavit of service. Now, once the report has been prepared, it will be circulated to the members for their review and for the subsequent signature. Once it has been finalized, as a standard procedure, the report is tabled during the designated report for committees, a segment of the order of business of the House. During that proceeding, the chairman of the PSC committee would actually move a motion for the report of the committee to be adopted and to be approved. The chairman would also move a subsequent substantive motion for the report to be referred to the Committee of Privileges. Now, the Committee of Privileges will evaluate the issue of the witness non-compliance with the summons, the review of reasons or excuses provided by the witness, if any, and to formally determine whether the act constitutes a contempt of Parliament. Now, just for the purposes of clarity, the Committee of Privileges is established in accordance with Standing Order 72, which stipulates there shall be referred to the Committee of Privileges any matter which appears to affect the power or privilege of the House, and it shall be the duty of the committee to consider any matter so referred and to report thereon to the House. The Speaker shall be a member and the chairman of the Committee of Privileges. Now, after its inquiry, the Committee of Privileges must submit a final report back to the House of Representatives, and that will be tabled, recommending whether the individual should be held in contempt, along with the proposed penalties in accordance with, in our instant case, Section 18 of the Senate and House of Representatives Powers and Privileges Act. Now, once the report is tabled, the House must debate and pass a formal resolution declaring the individual to be in contempt. Now, as the Speaker will go ahead subsequently and issue what is called a Speaker's ruling on the matter. Additionally, the Speaker of the House, upon the committee's report, will not just issue a Speaker's ruling, but a formal correspondence or directive to the non-compliant witness, outlining or alerting the witness that they are in breach of parliamentary orders, outline the active contempt status, and note the impending legal action. In our previous meeting, it was asked then, how do we undertake or progress this matter to the parish court? Now, to enforce the statutory penalty, the Clerk to the Houses of Parliament, acting on the resolution, the past resolution, and the Speaker's directive and ruling, must refer the matter to the Director of Public Prosecutions. Now, the DPP has a constitutional authority to initiate proceedings against the individual in the parish court, and that is reflected in Section 20 of the Senate and House of Representatives Powers and Privileges Act, which states in the marginal note, Director of Public Prosecutions to sanction prosecution. It stipulates no prosecution for an offence under this Act shall be instituted except with the written sanction of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Now, once the matter is brought before the parish court, court reviews the evidence of parliamentary breach. Upon summary conviction, the court formally orders the individual to pay the fine. As previously stated, the penalty of $200 has lost its punitive value as the Act is outdated. However, the legal reality dictates that the legal process remains mandatory, and the Parliament must still undertake the necessary legal steps to protect the integrity of its oversight powers, regardless of the minuscule nature of the financial penalty. Now, based on our deliberation as a committee on June 16th, it was also agreed that the Honourable Speaker would actually write to the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs to undertake an extensive review and redraft of the Senate and House of Representatives Privilege and Powers Act in conjunction with the Law Reform Department and the Office of the Parliamentary Counsel, which are viewed to preserve and protect public accountability. So that outlines in detail the process to be undertaken. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stewart. It's a very detailed process, members, but I believe it's important for us to follow through on it, given what we have all said, which was really the contempt shown to the committee and the Parliament by the CEO of the University Hospital of the West Indies. So when the report is prepared, it will come to members for their approval, and I'm seeking the members' support at that point so that we can complete the process as outlined by Ms. Stewart. Are there any questions from members on what Ms. Stewart outlined? If not, we will proceed as she has indicated. For the substantive matter today, the way we'll proceed, I'll ask Mr. McAdam or his designate to provide a summary of the Auditor General's report. I'll then invite you, Ambassador Meade, to respond in general terms, and then we'll go point by point with each of the key findings that came out of the Auditor General's report. Mr. McAdam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to provide a brief overview of the reports before us today. The two reports before us are on the Hurricane Melissa Relief Initiative, and one relates to the IT, Information Technology Audit of the Support Jamaica website. The other deals with the audit of governance, procurement, and distribution of Starlink devices. In summary, the concerns raised in the report relate to, one, the information security and data protection, stroke data privacy issues in relation to the Support Jamaica website, and the other matters relate to certain oversight weaknesses that were highlighted in relation to the management of the National Disaster Fund. There are also certain procurement matters that were raised in relation to the emergency procurement mechanism, as well as the procurement and distribution of the Starlink devices that were identified in the report. I'm pleased to also advise the committee that subsequent to the tabling of the report, ODPEM has in fact taken steps to implement some of the recommendations, and they should be commended for the action taken to date. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. McAdam. Ambassador Mead.
Chairman, thank you so much for the opportunity, and I want to thank the Auditor General's team for supporting us and for the kind comments. So the Office of the Prime Minister is pleased to appear before the PAC to assist the committee's review of matters submitted by the Auditor General in relation to the real-time audit of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management in response to Hurricane Melissa. The PAC may recall that Hurricane Melissa, a Category 5 storm, hit Jamaica on the 28th of October 2025, leaving behind significant destruction. The ODPM, being the main national coordinating entity for disaster management, coordinated the all-of-government response to the disaster. PAC may also recall that shortly after the passage of the hurricane, the Cabinet directed that the subject of disaster preparedness and emergency management be moved to the Ministry, from the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development to the Office of the Prime Minister. Since then, we've been working very closely with the Auditor General's chambers, having been advised of the real-time audit of the ODPM to clarify queries, resolve issues and concerns, and close any gaps that may have been identified. So as we consider the Auditor General's Information Technology Audit Report on the Support Jamaica website for Hurricane Melissa Initiative and the Auditor General's Department's Compliance Audit Report on governance procurement activities and the receipt and distribution of Starlink devices for the Hurricane Melissa effort, we are prepared to offer clarification, and Chair, if you'll allow, I will ask the Director General to lead on treating with the specific matters, and subject to any directive from you, I will make inputs as well, but he has come prepared to treat with the individual matters, if you may allow now, Chair.
Sure, go ahead, Commander Gill.
Good morning, Chair, and the rest of the members present here. The ODPEM generally accepts the findings of the Auditor General and its recommendation. We acknowledge the steps necessary to improve aspects of the information security governance, procurement procedures, inventory oversight, and asset accountability. It's also important to recognize that the events took place during significant national emergency, and the swift deployment and development of an externally developed website solution, rapid procurement of supplies, large-scale relief efforts, and the urgent interagency coordination matters were upon us. The exigencies themselves, while they explain the pace at which it took place, does not account for any administrative gaps identified. I will treat with the matters as they come now. In terms of information security gaps, under the heading of the inadequate user access management, we have acknowledged those gaps, and steps have been taken to cause for the necessary documentation around accessing the Support Jamaica website. To date, the accounts which were mentioned as the 8 officers who were given external access to the website, those accounts have been since removed from access. Nevertheless, the issues related to access control of the Support Jamaica website has been rectified, and access control document has been implemented. And as mentioned before, all the non-ODPEM user access accounts have been deactivated. Additionally, the matter concerning the Director General himself possessing super user access, those privileges to the website have since been removed, and the information systems manager at the ODPEM has since been granted the necessary access permissions to the Support Jamaica website.
Just, if you can pause for a second, can you tell me who currently owns that website, the Support Jamaica website? I know it would have been created by a private developer on behalf of the government, but what's the current status of it?
So the private developer still owns the website. The agreement is an SAS, and forgive me if I forgot the meaning of it, but primarily it is they develop the website and then offer us the service. So we have 1 year's free service to the portal.
Do we have a formal agreement with that?
We do have a formal agreement in place. In the initial phases of it, for the rapid development and deployment of the website, yes, there wasn't the necessary agreement in place, but we had subsequently regained on that and caused for an agreement to be signed governing that website and its mechanisms.
Does I saw where you said the 8 non-ODPM users. Is there any non-ODPM or non-OPM staff who would have access, for example, to donor information, amounts that have been donated, etc.? Would that exist now?
At the current moment, only 2 such persons from the AG's chambers.
For
the purposes of the review here and now.
AG meaning
The
Attorney General or Auditor General. So so there would be no non-government person who would have access to this information and data at this particular point in time.
More prescriptively, well, just to be clear, no non-ODPEM staff currently has access to it. Conceivably, however, the actual developers of the website will have access to the backend because they still own the website. So their approved staff would also have some access to the website.
So
any changes to the website modality in terms of new information, which needs to be put up in terms of updates and so on, they are also able to treat with that for us.
Well, what I'm getting at is really the data, not so much the technical side of it, but I mean, you'd appreciate there would be fairly confidential information from individuals, companies who would have made donations in terms of names, amounts, etc. I'm more concerned about that than, you know, the private developer having technical access to update the website. So I want an assurance about that data and how you're treating access to that specific data.
So the developer and ODPEM have access to the information as per our current privacy statement. We would have made the necessary adjustments to make it clear. As it is now, they own the website. We are utilizing our portal. There's a requirement in the data protection agreement concerning once we are concluded using the platform, the modalities around how the information should be scrubbed, and the assurance is given to us that the matters are indeed removed from their access.
And would that represent best practice now in terms of them still having access to that data? Because they're not bound by either any data protection. Well, let me ask, are they bound? Is the developer bound by any data protection laws or anything?
So we do have a data protection agreement with the developer in place. I don't know, I could ask my legal officer to explain further, but
please.
There is an agreement in place.
Yeah. If you could just introduce yourself and the position you hold.
Hi, good morning again, everyone. My name is Diana McFarlane, Legal Counsel for ODPEM. So to answer your question, we have a data processing agreement, which was appended to the parent agreement, which was the deed of agreement. It's appended as...
Can you speak closer to the mic? Yeah.
Okay. My apologies. So, yes, the data protection clauses are in effect. In fact, we have a data processing agreement, which is appended to the parent deed of agreement at Appendix 2. So as it relates to your concerns, as it relates to data, this is protected and explicitly set out in the data processing agreement at Appendix 2.
And you would be in a position to determine whether, if a user accesses that particular data, and again, I'm focused particularly on donations, the persons, the amounts. Does ODPEM have a process where you would know whether the developer accesses that data at a particular point? Is there a requirement to provide that information to you? How would you enforce that?
I would ask Mr. Ben to explain more on that, but in terms of an automatic signal to us that the developer has accessed the information that isn't built into the system, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Ben, based on his access privilege now, should be able to audit the website to see who has accessed particular information.
And is the website still open for donations, meaning somebody could come on today and still make a contribution?
Yes, the website is still open for contributions.
Okay. All right, Member Brown and Member Miller, then Member Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Although the information system user policy is now developed, why did ODPEM operate a national disaster relief platform without approved information security and access control policies?
So again, the question is, how did we operate such a system?
Why? Why did you operate such a system without approval?
So the facts are that before we had that website, we did not have the policies in place. The system was rapidly developed and deployed, and eventually ODPEM would have gotten control of the website, and subsequently that would have taken the necessary steps to ensure that we are compliant with the regulatory actions.
There was a hurricane before, you had burial before, there was no policy in place during that time?
If I do recall correctly, and admittedly I wasn't with the agency at the time, I don't believe the ODPEM had control over the site that was previously developed. In this particular case, the control of it was then given to ODPEM. But as mentioned before, having the gaps then realized, significant effort was made to correct those.
And why were these policies implemented administratively before board approval?
Well, there was a need to ensure that we are taking positive actions. So in case, for example, of a user access documentation, we went on with that pressing from the management side.
What is the timeline for formal ratification?
Definitely, based on the implementation plan, there are about 22 relevant policies which have been developed. I don't recall the battle rhythm now, but we intend to do about 6 or so policies out the new board, the old board having already been briefed on all 22, but there is in place an implementation plan regarding the more pertinent ones to get those definitely to the wicket at the next meeting.
What assurance can ODPEM provide that similar governance gaps do not currently exist in other information systems?
Well, the broad space of information systems, this approach is multimodal. It's not directly specific to support Jamaica. Whilst some efforts, for example, the DEED and the DPA appended are specific to support Jamaica, the broader policy aspects are for broad IS matters.
All right, Member Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I wanted to go to the matter you raised as it relates to the owner of the platform. I see here on page 5 of the briefing, the Hurricane Melissa Relief audit report, that while ODPEM engaged the website the developer regarding deficiencies identified in the data processing agreement, the required corrective actions remain outstanding. Can you elaborate what remains outstanding in terms of that data protection agreement, processing agreement? What are the timelines for those corrective actions to be remedied and closed? And also I see here where the developer has not yet attained or achieved SOC 2 Type 2 compliance. SOC 2 Type 2 compliance is fundamental as it relates to the ability of the platform to guard against penetration and invasion by cyber attacks and having that similar access to the data. So can you speak to those three items?
So to the best of my knowledge, Chair, to you, the only, when I use the word outstanding matter, is the matter concerning the SOC 2 type certification. The developer has indicated, and we've seen the necessary reports, they would have engaged in a matter, in a system of getting the training done. So by all reports, they are compliant with the standards. It's just no matter for them to transmit to us any certification around the standards. We would have also benefited from significant amount of documentation concerning penetration testing and the implementation around any gaps they would have discovered. All those documentations would have been transmitted in subsequent.
So you are saying that ODPEM is in possession of proof that all the elements that would constitute them attaining compliance for the SOC 2 Type 2 is in order, except as you are indicating training? That's what you're saying?
No, I'm saying they have done the training. The matter is now of a certificate.
Okay, so they have completed the SOC 2 Type 2.
It's a matter of transmitting to us the certificate.
So it's just a certification, the formal certification.
Formal certification.
ODPEM is awaiting. So they remain uncertified.
That could be a language used.
All right. So all of the other outside of the compliance measures relating to the SOC 2 Type 2, the statement about other deficiencies, those are closed. That's what you're also reporting.
Yes, sir, to the best of my knowledge. I'm trying to pick up on that list now. But as far as I'm tracking, the only deficiency outstanding is the matter concerning the SOC 2 type certification.
All right, thanks. Chairman, I don't know if we could continue the questions. I know
I wanted to go finding by finding.
Oh, finding by finding.
Yeah.
All right. So
Before I invite Member Hamilton to speak, and PS Mead, maybe you can take this. The Auditor General said, as of July 15, 2026, ODPM remains unregistered as a data controller as the Office of Information Commissioner advised that the registration process under the DPA for the year 25-26 was suspended until further notice. I don't know if you're in a position to comment on that, because it's not specific to ODPM, but it would mean that both in the public and the private sector, entities that would need to register can't register. Was there a reason for the suspension, and what is the status of the OIC in relation to data protection?
Thank you, Chair. And you're quite correct. It's not unique to ODPEM. In fact, my understanding, and Director General can comment on it, is that his processes are ready for registration once that's done. The Information Commissioner is facing some staffing challenges. I am assured that they have been making some progress with that in that regard. I don't have a specific date, Chair, that I would want to put on record that they'll be ready, but that is information I could get updated from the Information Commissioner and provide.
Yes, the committee would want to know what the status is, suspended until what period of time, because, you know, we spent a long time. In fact, in my previous role, it took about 5 years to get this bill passed, and if we are at a situation where organizations cannot register because of staff issues or other issues, we would need to find out what is the time frame to resolve those issues so that the act can take effect. In effect, we are not operating by the act if agencies cannot be registered as data protection under the Data Protection Act. So if you could do your inquiries and report back to the committee, I'd appreciate that.
I so undertake, Chair. I will.
Member Hamilton?
I don't know if you wanted Director General to just comment on his readiness. Because
okay, yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah. So I'm on, sorry, for members, I'm on key finding number 3 on page 5, and I'm looking at the verification. So it's non-compliance with the Data Protection Act, the last paragraph on the verification. And the process, just for colleagues who may not be aware of how we operate, there's a finding, there's a response from the MDA, and then the Auditor General verifies that response. So I'm looking at the verification of the response from the ODPM. Member Hamilton? Huh? No, we're coming back to 1 and 2. Member Hamilton?
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow on the question you just asked in relation to the Information Commissioner, I would propose that maybe the Information Commissioner provided the response that you are seeking, rather than the ministry. I don't think it is the ministry's responsibility, and the IC would be able to provide proper information or response as to what it is you're asking.
I was really asking through him, not necessarily for him to, not for the PS to provide, but I take the point. We can, the clerk, we could write directly to the Information Commissioner and get that information.
That's in their remit.
Okay, all right, no problem.
There are 2 questions I have in relation to this.
One said, well, the question was asked, where does it fall? And I wasn't sure whether it, Ambassador Mead, whether that, no, the Information Commissioner, whether it fell under OPM or
it does come under my oversight,
well, so
Chair, yes.
But still, it is in their remit to respond. You don't have that information as it is.
I do not have the information through your Chair, but the Chair directed it through me because they come under my oversight, indeed.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay,
it's through you, yes. Yeah.
I have 2 questions. There was mention made that the agreement with the private entity was a 1-year agreement?
Yes, ma'am.
Which means the use of the website is temporary?
It is. So it's a 1-year agreement, and there is the ability to continue that.
I wanted to know whether or not there is a plan for the website to be a permanent national disaster platform.
So what I said, that there is an intent to have a permanent platform of this nature.
But not necessarily this particular website?
Well, to have a website.
I just, because the issue came up as to the access of the private developer still. I know you have an internal IT person.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
What's that person's role now in relation to this platform, since it is still the private developer that has to make any changes in the back end?
Primarily, for any internal audit procedures, there are also persons in the organization that need to pull particular information for reporting purposes. This person also is the one who would confirm through the user access documentation and give access to, for example, if the Auditor General's department would have needed access for their audit trail, he's the person then who provisions those accounts, and also internally where persons may or may not require access at particular times. It is through his access to the website that he can provision those systems.
Do you have the capacity internally to develop or create such a website?
Negative,
ma'am. One other question, was there any actual data breach, unauthorized access, or misuse of any volunteer data or donor data?
To the best of our knowledge, ma'am, no.
All right, thank you.
All right, can we go back to key finding number 1? Before, I know Member Brown has a question, but in the verification, the Auditor General has indicated that ODPM has developed an information system policy and a cybersecurity policy effective June 30th. While I acknowledge that as being good, has there been training, has there been sensitization for the policy to be implemented? I know a policy has been developed as of June 30th, but in terms of it being effective within the organization, can you comment on that?
Chair, if you could just repeat the name of the two policies.
Well, okay, so I'm reading from the brief provided by the Auditor General. It says, ODPM developed an information systems user policy and a cybersecurity policy, both taking effect on June 30th, 2026.
So there has been some sensation through the senior management team for those policies, but more broadly speaking, around the data protection matters. We have had a series of training sessions to include those for the privacy champions and other staff, indicating, what the policies are and how to cause our governance over certain IS privacy matters.
I'm particularly interested in the cybersecurity part because, I think I saw a report recently about the number of attacks that have been directed at Jamaican government websites. And this would be one that would be near the top of the list because it would have names of individuals and organizations who would have donated money. So I'm particularly interested in what you're doing on the cybersecurity side, acknowledging that you still have an arrangement with a private developer, but what, from your perspective, what is being done to ensure that the policy which has been developed is actually implemented and has taken effect?
So, Chair, formally through the SMT, they have been...
Through the what, sorry?
The senior management team,
okay.
They have been properly apprised of it. We'll definitely have to press more on having that information flowing right through the organization. So we'll take the guidance on it and calls for those specific ones to be included in the training through the DPO.
Are you working closely with for example, the CERT, which operates out of OPM, and what's the relationship like with that organization?
There is some discussions with the CERT. We've had some guidance from them in developing, especially in the early days, matters around the DPA and looking at cybersecurity. Also, where there may be any instance of any type, they also report in to us, and if necessary, give some guidance on whatever feedback required from our side. But definitely, we'll have to take some efforts to strengthen those relationships as we go forward.
In terms of personnel, how do you have adequate personnel in your, if you want to call it, IT department or the information systems department?
Broadly across the organization to include that department. This is what we're looking at keenly in terms of enhancing the sort of human resource capability. So there are some gaps, and we're looking keenly at those. And
I asked, following up on what Member Hamilton asked, and your response was you're looking to develop a platform that could exist permanently because we don't want hurricanes, but we're likely to get future ones. And instead of at each disaster, we go through the process of developing a website, you would have the responsibility of maintaining something that would be there that persons can donate throughout. So that would require ensuring that you have the personnel to both develop and to maintain such a platform over an extended period of time.
Well, Chair, as mentioned, we're looking at those matters, and we're working also closely with the ICTA in looking at those issues.
All right, Member Brown.
Thank you very much, Chair. I want to start where the Chairman indicated in terms of the number of cybersecurity acts that have been facing the country. 49 million as reported for last year, 2025 alone, up from 12 million in 2022. So we recognize that cybersecurity is a fundamental area and one of concern for the government. So I want to start with the Auditor General first. Your report, Mr. McAdam, found that OPM had no formally approved information system. And I know that the post-remedial actions have been taken, but it's important to understand what happened before and what is the general context. So your report indicated that there's no formal information security or access control policies. What I want to ask, is this an isolated, based on the work of the AG's department, is this an isolated, weakness in terms of OPEM, or do you see that generally across government based on your audits to date?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I should provide a direct response to that question because it might open a can of worms. But what I'll say is that we are seeing improvements. We are, in fact, seeing improvements because from our end, we have a dedicated IT audit unit.
Yes.
Because we have recognized the risks associated with the use of IT and information systems. And we are, over the years, we have reviewed the various IT systems across multiple MDAs, and I can confirm that we are seeing improvements. We are not at the level where we should be, but we are seeing improvements.
Would you say that the improvements are moving in tandem with the scale and growth of the threat, as indicated by the 49 million last year, fourfolds up in 3 years?
Well, you see, what you normally find is that the risks and the threats usually move at a faster pace than the response. And that is not unique to the public sector. But as I indicated, we are seeing improvements from the policy side, and we are seeing improvements from the implementation side.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I want to jump to the PS, Dr. Mead. The issue of cybersecurity, I believe, comes under the oversight responsibility of the Office of the Prime Minister, where you are the Permanent Secretary. Is there presently, because we saw that gap as reported by the Auditor General, that it's a serious finding in terms of the lack of that sort of policy and operational arrangement as it relates to those information security, cybersecurity, etc. But is there a centrally guided platform and procedure and policies that the government has through the ministry and the Office of the Prime Minister and the ministries that comes underneath it for those matters that guides the public sector as it relates to information security, user access management, etc.?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. We are in the process of establishing a cyber security authority. At the moment, what transpires is that JASCERT, the Jamaica Cyber Incident Response Team, provides that function in terms of responding to all the threats and giving guidance, both public and private. The ICT authority that was previously eGov treats with government digital platforms, and they have a team in place to treat with cybersecurity for the government resources and give that advice. We are trying to, and we have a partnership now with the IDB to develop the cybersecurity authority into a more robust mechanism covered by legislation and with authority, similar to the Data Protection Act that was mentioned before and the governance systems there. We're in the process of developing that for cybersecurity so that that system can exist. But at the moment, we have diverse small entities in different ministries that have a small piece. So, for example, in treating with cybercrime, it comes under Ministry of National Security. We also have MOCA that, as a part of organized crime, treats with a part of it. And, of course, the JDF itself has a component in terms of cyber defense. What we're seeking to do just now, and as I said, we're just putting that together with some funding support, is to have a comprehensive authority that governs cybersecurity generally, public and private, and with the authority of legislation. That's not yet in place, Chair, through you, but we're working on that now.
All right. So the public sector agencies, ministries, departments do not have that centrally guided procedural and policy approach and structure as yet.
The public sector, through you, Chair.
Yes.
As I said, the Jamaica, the ICT Authority, which is now properly in place, you remember they transitioned from eGov. They treat with the public sector. Yeah. And so they have a cybersecurity team in place that gives that guidance to the public sector. Yes. So I was speaking to the higher umbrella group that will treat with guidance to both public and private. But Jamaica at the moment has a team in place to provide that guidance to the public sector.
Okay. So that guidance wasn't shared with ODPEM in terms of the operations as it relates to this matter that we are discussing just now.
So what I can say is that if you recall, the ODPEM was moved to the Office of the Prime Minister just after the hurricane. We almost, very quickly after that, had the audits being done. Certain things were pointed out, and we started to do our checks. So in fairness to ODPEM, I can't say whether they would have been seeking guidance on these matters before. And I am not aware, as the Office of the Prime Minister, whether such guidance was sought and not provided. Since the gaps were pointed out by the Auditor General's team, we've been working, quite assiduously to make sure that if there are any gaps, they are covered.
Okay. The Auditor General also found that some of the statements that were displayed and presented by ODPEM as it relates to privacy notices and the presence of a DPO, Data Protection Officer at ODPEM, were not accurate. Why would that have been done? And I noticed that there is a reference in terms of the response from the ODPEM legal team that usually they vigorously review all the statements that are made online for accuracy. So how could that have happened? That they would have said that there's a DPO in place and where there's none, and that in terms of the data privacy processor arrangements, that those were satisfactory as well.
I'll ask Chair for the Director General to respond, but certainly what I did as Permanent Secretary through your Chair is that where we had agencies that were still in the process of developing their data protection systems and officers and procedures, what I did was to provide some guidance from the Office of the Prime Minister, where our data protection officer would give some broad guidance to these agencies, both in terms of developing their own systems and giving some coverage. So that's what happened. Director General can probably answer more specifically, but that broader coverage from the ministry level in terms of guidance would have been there for, for data protection.
It's just the satisfaction for the country that whatever statements are placed on government websites, primarily as it relates to, well, any matter, but certainly as it relates to data protection, cybersecurity, the safety of our data, that they are accurate and it's not just a paper presentation and to be found out through an audit that it's not so.
So, Chair, through you, just to maybe add some context before I get into the deeper answer. I want us to recall that the system was developed and then handed over to the ODPM. And at the material time, the ODPM would not have necessarily at the time had these structures in place that I discussed before. Having onboarded the system and then through audits and so on, realizing these gaps, significant efforts were made to have those corrected. So for example, the matter of which you speak is one concerning where the privacy statement would have indicated that OPM and ODPM has access to the to the data. The inference there was that it should also include the developer. That has been changed. If you want to put it in terms of the generic statement on the privacy matter, it would have also indicated, as is the routine, that for particular issues, contact the DPO. No, ODPEM did not have a DPO in place at the time the system was handed over to us. Those things have been
Can I just interrupt you? Was that statement made by the developer or by ODPEM?
So we didn't develop the system.
Okay, so it would have been made by the developer then.
It came to us in that manner.
Okay, all right, okay.
And that is some of my answer to that question, Chair.
Yeah, but again, and I understand the post-remedial, explanation and thing, but just to, it comes on the public, so it's just to what are the safeguards, what are the standards, the quality assessment, to ensure that what goes out on the government's, agencies, departments, ministries' website is actually accurate.
So, Chair, the rectification would have also included a matter of actually causing to the Ministry of Finance and Public Service to have a DPO post made available on our establishment. We've since onboarded the person into the post. We have gone to consultancies around the matters and to have the relevant policies developed. Some training has occurred around the matter. And thus far, I can assure that anything surrounding this type of matter, that Ms. Gordon and Ms. Gordon, as it is now, she doesn't have a full team, and Mr. Ben through the IS department are keenly monitoring these issues. So we have taken the steps to be compliant in all regards, and thus far, I believe it has been working well.
Thank you, Chair.
Member Miller.
Commander Gale, just following up, what can you say to the 16,900 donors and about 2,600 volunteers that their personal information is secured? I want the public and the donors to know that their information, the personal information is secured. What is in place? What safeguards? Tell them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is it that is in place? Because we want more donations, so we want to assure them exactly what you're doing.
So, Chair, we have in place the regulatory compliance matters, and that is as strong, I think, as we can get to indicate to the public that we now have systems in place to cause for the data to be protected. We are coming from a place where we were at literally a zero-sum game in terms of the systems and persons who are in place and also the training around that. So significant progress has been made to, as per the GOJ requirements, implement the necessary systems to cause for the data to be protected, including what is now the data processing agreement between the ODPEM and the entity.
If registration as a data controller has been suspended, what compliance measures now in place ODPEM has adopted since until
the matter of actually registering does not prevent us from actually doing the things as if we were registered. So it is now that we are doing those things as if we had been registered. So the matter of completing registration does not prevent the necessary actions, not to the best of my knowledge, for us to act in the manner as if we were registered.
All right, Member Bunton.
Thank you, Chairman. I really have a question about the broader policy implications of the fact that the registration process under the Data Protection Act, the registration of data controllers, has been suspended for the entire year ending November 30th, 2026. There are serious obligations that organizations have under the Data Protection Act. And in fact, I recall one very large private sector entity, the CEO said they estimated it will cost it would cost them $1 million a year to comply with all the obligations under the Data Protection Act. But in the context of the suspension of the registration of data controllers, where does that leave entities who are obliged to comply with the Data Protection Act? And what implications does that have for enforcement by the Office of the Information Commissioner? And I'm not asking, I don't want to hear from the Information Commissioner. I want to hear from you representing the Policy Ministry, what those policy implications are.
Chair, if I may. Thank you, sir. Through you, Chair. We're not in a position right now to enforce. That's the fact. I acknowledge. I am actually trying to get an update on the situation that led to the suspension. As I said, there's staffing and some other challenges. And I did indicate through the chair earlier that we will provide a comprehensive update on that situation. But indeed, Chair, I acknowledge we are not in a position to enforce at the moment. We continue to communicate the importance of data protection. We continue to encourage data controllers to have their systems in place, and so that once the registration is being done and the ability to enforce, then they're already in place. But it is a fact that we're not in a position to enforce right now. We're working to get that up and going very quickly. And as I committed to the chair, I'll give a more comprehensive update on that.
Just a follow-up. So just so that, because as you know, the Data Protection Act has wide application across most entities that are even medium and large. So as we speak today, compliance with the Act is really voluntary, given that there is no enforcement capability, but the Act is in effect. So might there be retroactive enforcement when the staffing comes up to speed? I think this is important to understand the difference, whether the obligations under the Act are still fully in effect, in the sense that any breaches, the full penalties can and will be applied, albeit probably not in the current period, but it could be done retroactively.
Chair, through you, subject to any corrections on the details I might get from my legal staff and Information Commissioner, my recollection is that what we had done was to implement certain sections of the Act. Our aim was that while we continue to build out the Information Commissioner's office, structurally and otherwise, that we wanted to make certain provisions of the Act effective so that data controllers would understand what is coming, that they could register, and that there are other provisions of the Act that are to be enforced later that would then cause the compliance to be done. So unless I'm otherwise advised, but my assessment of what I know to this point is that there can be no retroactive action, because we implemented the Act in stages. We wanted people to understand what it means, become aware of it, register, and then we will indicate when we're going to be able to enforce compliance. I don't think we're at that point. I'll just, double check. But I don't recall that we are at that stage, and it certainly would not be retroactive. So we're open for registration. It's not being enforced at the moment.
Thank you. We look forward to the update, Ambassador Meade, when you get the information from the Information Commissioner, because that's a very important Took a long time to bring that legislation to Parliament, a lot of consultations, far-reaching, and it is disappointing to hear, but we acknowledge where we are, but we do need to know what the plan is going forward. All right, Member Miller,
Okay,
you
sure.
have a question on this?
I take note that the ODPEM's information system manager is the only person who currently has access to the Support Jamaica website. Am I correct?
No, ma'am. So he has, I believe, the highest privilege, but there are other persons who, for example, if we wanted to tally directly the donation and so on, who have access to the system, and other members within the ODPEM do have access.
Do you have an independent oversight body that will monitor access to all those persons?
No, ma'am.
Do you plan to have that?
That's something we could
An
look at
oversight,
under some advisement.
to monitor the privileged user accounts. I think that's important.
I'm noted.
All right, members, I'm going to move to the second audit related to the Starlink devices, unless there are any other questions on the first audit. My first question is to the permanent secretary, because you're the best person here equipped to answer this. And I really find this one mind-boggling. The National Disaster Fund Committee, the tenure expired in September 2023, and it was only in June of this year, a month ago, that a new committee was established. And the reason I find it mind-boggling, we have had weather events. We had, before Melissa, we had Beryl. We have had a lot of near misses. Every hurricane season, there are systems that come our way. What would explain why we would have been without a committee for 3 years, given the vulnerability that we have as a country and the need to be able to respond quickly to disasters? And this is just this is not something that requires expending resources. It's just putting a committee in place to manage what would be there. Are you in a position to indicate why that would have been so?
Chair, I am not in a position to indicate why that gap was filled. Once the ODPEM came within my purview and I was aware that there was this gap, we worked very closely with the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service to get the fund committee in place, and the committee is now functional.
Can you indicate them? I don't know if the membership has been said publicly, but could you indicate the membership of that committee and who it reports to? Huh? It is what, sorry? I know, well, I don't know, but if you could indicate for us, please.
Did you want broad positions or the exact names that are in place now?
Well, or the positions. I mean, who chairs the committee, for example?
So the committee is chaired by the finance director of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management.
Okay.
I sit on the committee. So in terms of the act, the act speaks to the finance director of the office, the permanent secretary and the minister responsible. I sit on it as well. 2 members appointed from a panel of 6 chartered accountants nominated by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica. 2 persons from the public sector appearing to the minister to have suitable experience in the management of similar funds, one being an officer of the ministry responsible for finance, and not more than 5 other persons appearing to the minister to have such knowledge, skills, and experience.
I think it would be important. I mean, you have read the act. I think for public confidence, for those names to be known, it would have been approved by Cabinet in June. I mean, normally Cabinet notes come to Parliament. I don't recall seeing that particular one, but again, given the impact of Melissa on the country, our vulnerability as a nation to to natural disasters, it's important that the public knows who those persons are.
I am in possession of that information. Chair, you would like me to put it on record now?
Sure, please, yes.
Okay, so Ms. Nikita Dobbs, who is the Director of Finance of the Office of Disaster Preparedness, is the chairperson. Mr. Diego Thomas, the Deputy Chairperson. Myself, Permanent Secretary, as a member. Mrs. Anisha Gordon-McFarlane is a member. Mr. Tafari Burry, he's the Principal Financial Officer in the Office of the Prime Minister, is a member. Mr. Jason Anderson, Honorable Patrick Hilton, OJ, CD, Ms. Sherry-Ann Johnson-Hilton, Mrs. Beverly Williamson, Ms. Sandra Johnson, constitute the members' chair. And as I said, it's chaired by the Director of Finance from the Audit.
And has the committee met?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in terms of the broad responsibilities of the committee, is it to manage the funds that are in the National Disaster Fund and determine how those funds are deployed?
The committee manages the funds by way of getting authorization from the Ministry of Finance on the public service. So the committee will from time to time meet, make decisions about what could be done and what amounts of funds would be required. But the Act requires that the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service actually authorizes the...
So you would make a recommendation
to the Financial Secretary. A recommendation would be made to the Ministry of Finance.
Right.
And then when they agree to a sum, then that is executed by the Office of Disaster Preparedness with oversight by the committee.
Right. Okay. I mean, you'll appreciate why these questions would arise,
of course,
given that, I mean, not this particular report, but the report, one of the reports from the Auditor General indicated that only 2% of the funds that were donated were actually deployed. And that created a certain amount of angst, certainly in the public sphere, given the level of need that exists back then and even now. And so my question is with the committee fully in place, does the committee take recommendations, for example, and I'll just use an example. We need to spend X amount on basic schools in St. Elizabeth or Westmoreland, and then would the committee then make a recommendation to the Ministry of Finance through on behalf of ODPM? Is that how the committee operates, as an example?
Chair, that's one of the different modalities. Of course, the committee, and I can't speak for the chair of the committee, but as a member of the committee, that's how it would operate. I need to clarify, though, the point about the percentage of donations that were deployed. Need to be put in the context, I would suggest, Chair, that we were getting donations in kind and we got cash donations. The decision that was taken was in the immediate aftermath of the hurricane, while persons were in need of physical items. Giving them money would not help them at that time necessarily. They were interested in getting physical items. The items that were donated in kind were given priority. Some of them were also perishable. Notwithstanding the policy, we still ended up losing some things that were close to expiry date. The decision was to, using the helicopter support we got from the US and otherwise and other support, to get physical items that were donated out to the people in the immediate aftermath. We then had to focus on giving them more ability to spend, and we had to work with the businesses in the locations to make sure they were open, because if people got money and there were no businesses open, they couldn't spend it. Then we put our attention to recovery in terms of structures. Again, the first priority was to where roofing and other building material were donated. The first priority was to use those with the support of the Jamaica Defense Force and some other forces that came in to actually repair roofs that could be repaired. while that was happening, the relevant ministry, NHT and so on, were looking at more medium-term solutions to bring in housing solutions that could be provided for people with closer to total loss. The funds that we had, the idea was to reserve those funds to acquire and provide for these units that would give people the recovery.
When you say units, you're talking about what? Housing units?
The modular housing units and that we're getting in for recovery. But the bottom line to the point is that the totality of the donations we got included cash and kind, and the priority was to use up the resources in kind first. So by reporting that at a certain point only a small percentage of the donated funds were used, it doesn't capture the fuller picture that of all the donations, including the kind, we did substantially use up the donations in kind to provide for the immediate need. And it was a part of the plan that most of the funds that were donated would be used for the more medium-term sustainable recovery, including the housing solutions. That's the context I wanted to provide here.
The context is important, and
yes.
I don't think anybody could challenge in the immediacy of the hurricane that you would use the items which were donated and what was perishable. I think the challenge most of us had was at the time of the audit, which I believe was in June, and you can correct me, Mr. McAdam, which would have been 8 or 9 months, 7 or 8 months post the hurricane. And we would be looking at medium term now, because you would have resolved the immediate problems. Not resolved, but you would have started the process of dealing with immediate problems. That, you know, in June, when I believe this report was done, it remained at the 2%. And I think this is probably the first time we're hearing an explanation that those funds are being designated or being used for a particular purpose. I don't think prior to this there was any communication to the public. And it's important to note because people did fundraisers, people went out of their way. And so if you hear 8 months post a hurricane that only 2% of the money has been used, come next hurricane, people are not going to be inclined to run and support a fund of this nature. So that communication about what the fund is designated for is something which is important to restore public confidence about what the plan is, because in the absence of it, people just felt, and particularly given that the need is so great out there. I mean, every MP in here could give you directions of how to use that money in a meaningful way to help their constituents who have been most affected. So the communication on that particular issue, I believe, should have been done earlier, probably immediately after the report came out, so that there was some greater understanding of what the plan was.
Chair, I certainly accept the point that if you saw a gap in communication, it means we didn't do enough. I can assure you that communications were done. But clearly, Chair, if there are persons who didn't hear it, we didn't do enough. But communications were done at different levels, at the agency level, at the ministry level, and above. But again, just...
You want to say it on the mic? Okay. Okay.
Chair.
Okay.
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
So, but if you don't mind, Chair, while I accept your point in principle, because as I said, no matter how much we have done, if there are persons who have not heard, we have not done enough.
Clark, don't disrupt the meeting. Don't disrupt the meeting. No, it is rare that you provide meaningful information. All right? Go ahead,
Chair?
and then I'll come
Right.
to Ben.
So,
you're still disrupting the meeting. Go ahead.
Accept your
Ambassador.
point in principle, Chair, and we will do even more than we did. But just some points of clarification. The actual point at which the Auditor General visited with us and assisted us is much earlier than when their report was placed. So it is not that in June they found these gaps, and I stand to be corrected, but I think it was much earlier in the year, probably February, that they started looking
Well,
at
let me
the
ask you, as of now, and we are in July, is there an update on that figure, or does it remain, is it pretty much the same?
Well, remember I gave the explanation, Chair, that the decision was taken that having treated with the immediate relief needs and having treated with the roofing needs, I didn't give a figure, but we got to over $400 million of actual donated material, building material. The policy was to use up those physical things first. And so the fund is now being used for the more medium-term solutions where people need actual houses. A lot of the houses are, modular houses are in-country. We're using the funds to build the foundations and for the utilities and that sort of thing to put those houses into use. So that's the stage we're at now, Chair.
All right, Member Witter, just hold on 1 second, because again, this is good information. Can you indicate in terms of the number of modular units? You said there are a number in country. How many are here? In terms of the, if you have it, the disbursement to provide the foundations, how many persons have been so assisted, etc.?
Chair, we targeted initially to purchase 2,500 units. I understand that we have about 1,200 in country now. I think we got 500 initially. There are about 1,200 in place now. There's a collaboration between MEGJID and NHTA and so on to actually do the construction of the bases and deploy them. I don't have a precise figure as to how many has been handed over, but there are 1,200 in country of a projected 2,500 in the first instance. We are remaining flexible, Chair, that if we need to bring more, then so be it. We are also planning to use some of these for shelter solutions if necessary, being conscious that we are now in a new hurricane season. That process is underway, Chair.
And the 2.5 would be designated for those who suffered total loss.
Close to total loss. Yes, total loss. In other words, even if they have a structure remaining, it is not safe and viable for it to be repaired.
And is there any impediment around land ownership in terms of the deployment of those units?
It is a consideration that is a part of what has delayed us. It is an important consideration because, of course, we can't, the government can't facilitate construction on property that we are not sure that the recipient is authorized to benefit from. So it is actually one of the things that has delayed us. Quite a few months ago, I chaired a meeting with NHD, NLA, and so on, and that issue of ownership, or if not ownership, the authority to construct on land is one of the things that delayed us, Chair. It is a matter we're dealing with.
How are we treating with it? Because I would guess, I mean, and there are members here from more affected areas, but the persons who would have suffered the greatest loss are probably those in situations in informal settlements. And while I appreciate you have to resolve it, you know, them kind of dark. I mean, them not really have nowhere to go. They might be catching, they might be under tarpaulin. So has there been consideration from a policy perspective so that how you treat with those people so that they can get a solution in a timely manner?
We have actually done some constructions on land under the control of the NLA. So where persons are in need and they can't show that they have authority to construct on land, we've been using government lands to provide some solution. And you may be aware that there is a deliberate policy now to treat with titling. In fact, a minister has actually been appointed, I think you're aware, Chair, to treat very directly with the matter of titling, and we have partnerships with governments that are more experienced than ours, the government of South Korea, for example, to help us with the titling process. So it's a deliberate process to try to improve ownership and proof of ownership and proof of authority to be in possession of land. So we're treating with that as a broader policy measure, but in terms of providing solutions for the people, if they can't show that they own or have authority to construct on a piece of land, then there are government-controlled lands that we are putting some of these solutions on so people can have shelter in the interim, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Member Witter. You turn off your mic. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a question in relation to this small spend from the donations. Did any of the donors specifically request how and where those donations are to be allocated, and how would that impact your delivery in terms of the allocation?
Thank you, Chair. I think I'll ask DG to add some fidelity, but generally speaking, we did get some requests like that, to answer your question directly, Chair, through Chair. The way we treated with them is that there were some entities that just wanted permission to come in country and provide solutions. And as far as I know, those were facilitated where they could come. Maybe they have reasons to be associated, you know, church or old boys, old girls from schools, and they have a particular interest. And through the ODPM, once some bona fides were checked, entities that want to just get permission to go and do solutions would do them. So you will find a lot of solutions that are there that were not necessarily controlled in terms of their implementation by ODPM. Permissions were just given. There are other cases in which funds might have been donated and they asked that it be designated for a particular thing, and that also goes through a process. So it's not a case where the funds that were, or resources that were taken in by ODPM, some entity could say use it only at X necessarily, right? In most cases, it's where they ask for permission to come and do stuff. DG, you want to add some fidelity to that?
The PS is indeed correct. And we have had, in terms of the cash donations, there would have been arrangements, if I recall, regarding about 2 countries for specific projects to be undertaken, and those that have gone to the gamut even to be approved to the cabinet. So yes, we would have had, in terms of cash donations, just about 2 countries would have asked for a specific modality that we would have agreed on, country to country, as to how the cash should be dispensed.
Member Witter, you have any follow-up on?
No, just to say, this is the last question as to how would that impact the delivery in terms of the spend?
So in terms of the request for a particular spend, then the current project we're considering, we have all the line items in place to act on it once it is that we receive the cash in the ODPM system. So the procurement matters have been looked at. We know exactly what is which ought to be procured. It is now for a matter for the funds to be handed over to ODPM for those to be expended.
So at what point would that fund become a part of the committed fund?
The committee?
Committed.
Well, conceptually, until we actually have it in hand, then we wouldn't commit it. But we are considering, when we do our cash balances in mind, that this pool of funds, X amount, is prescribed for a particular project.
Right, but so how in terms of percentage, how much of that would be tied up in that that
the quick math eludes
money
me
not
now,
being spent?
but we are speaking in totality. Phase 1 and phase 2 of that project will amount to just under $2 million US. I don't have the math on the percentage of it, but in terms of cash value, that's what we're looking at.
Right, so how many of that would be tied up in that 1.2 billion that was not spent?
Well, technically all of it. But I'm saying we don't physically, so the cash is with the GOJ, it's for a matter of it to properly come into ODPEM's accounts.
Right, so I'm just saying that maybe that would have impacted your ability to
Well, I could agree it could be probably part of the narrative in terms of us not having the ability to expend that cash yet because of programmatic issues.
Right. Okay.
So guided, Chair.
Can I ask, of the 2,500 modular units, have there been specific recipients who have been identified and notified that those units are going to be coming for them specifically? Has that been done? So John Brown in Black River knows that a unit will come in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Or we have just brought them in and then there'll be another process maybe through the Ministry of Labor to determine the distribution of the units.
So what I indicate, Chair, is that the lead ministry on the matter is the MEG ID, and they're working closely with other
Sorry, is the what?
Ministry of Economic Growth and
Job creation?
Job creation.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
infrastructure development.
Okay.
MEG ID itself. So they are the lead on it. There has been significant effort in partnership with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security to identify the most vulnerable and who are selected for this program. What I wouldn't want to indicate now is the sort of number that have been already identified or told that they will be in receipt of a modular unit.
No, I mean, the reason I ask, and there are MPs here who are from areas that have been most affected. I mean, it would be important to know that John Brown is getting a unit because John Brown may have applied for the housing grant, may have gone to the MP for something else. So that kind of information is important in ensuring that you don't have duplication of the very limited resources. And so, you know, certainly the MPs should be aware, and there should be some other process, whether it be through Ministry of Labor, that these 2,500 are designated for these 2,500 people.
As well, guys, we let them have some discussions with the planning teams around how to get onto that particular modality to ensure. But in the main, though, however, there are a number of projects around from which persons can benefit. And you would have been tracking the news most recently. We would have an MOU between roughly 6 or 8 entities concerning this matter of duplication. So as concerns NHD, MEG ID, MLSS, ODPEM itself, and other agencies, we are able to track through our MOU.
Is there a centralized database that
yes,
all those entities are working with?
Indeed, Chair.
Okay.
So we're able to look at the verifications and then cause for duplications not to occur.
Okay. All right. Member Miller? Yeah.
Ambassador Meade, I take note of the different factors resulting in delay of the distribution of the modular homes, and one in particular is that of land tenure. That concerns me because these are modular homes that can be moved. I think the goal should be, or the urgency should be, getting persons shelter for the upcoming hurricane season. And so the issue of land tenure, once I believe that persons have permission to use the land, that should not be such a great issue, and there should be greater need to get persons in a house, considering the pending, we're going into a hurricane season. So I think, or we're in a hurricane season. So I think that needs to be addressed. In my parish, there are persons still without roof and without homes, and I think that's just unacceptable to say it's land tenure, because once a person has permission, then they ought to have, or there should be steps with urgency in getting them sheltered.
Through you, Chair. Thank you, member. The point is taken. I wasn't adequately clear when I spoke earlier. Land tenure is an issue we have to treat with, but we are not preventing people from getting access to a solution if they don't have access to land. I did indicate that government-owned and controlled land is also a significant part of the solution, in fact. And so you are correct. It would not be appropriate to prevent someone from benefiting from a potentially portable solution that can help them now because of land tenure, and that's not what is happening. We are looking at other ways of ensuring that all those in need benefit members. So it's a valid point, and that's the approach we're taking. Thank you.
Another question. The committee is now in place, and given the history of the committee in its timing of its meetings, in its current terms of reference, are there guidelines when it's supposed to meet, given its history? Because we know that the last meeting was when? June 2022, and they only met 3 times prior. Are there guidelines now when they're supposed to meet?
Through you, Chair, we're going to be meeting at least every other month, and already we have decided that at this time, given a number of issues that need to be treated with, we'll be meeting monthly for the time being. So there are a number of outstanding issues given the gap. We're going to meet monthly, but at a minimum, member, I can assure you the committee will be meeting every other month.
The National Disaster Fund Guidelines document was in draft in 2025, December 2025. Where are we with that?
Chair, DG.
Through you, Chair. So that document is with the committee for final consideration, and there are also some directives from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service in terms of how the fund should operate, and those will necessarily be incorporated into the guidelines.
Member Clark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Commander RPS. We understand that many of those who are still without homes are those who were in flood-prone areas, riverbanking, and other areas. We understand the nature of Jamaica, and sometimes we are very stiff-necked. We don't want to move from where we have been. And so what are the plans, if any, where you will be rebuilding, if you're going to still have them in that area? And also, for those who own the land, have access to the land, but it is still in the flood-prone areas, what is the view, or how will you be treating with those matters?
I could start. So, Chair, through you, so there is a program underway to really have us a look at the matter concerning no-build zone / zoning. As it concerns the modular units, no, we will not be putting any modular units in locations that we think are particularly vulnerable. The idea is not to rebuild in spaces that would have had significant impact. There's also the matter that Pierre spoke of government-owned lands being used to...
Sorry, can I just interrupt you? On that particular issue, which, seems plausible, has there been consultation, for example, with representatives on these issues? So as the member said, you have decided you're going to take people off a gully bank, for example, and move them somewhere. You're not going to rebuild there. Has there been consultation with the representatives to say, this particular area, we're not rebuilding there, we're moving the people to X place, Y place? Has that been done?
I'm aware of some consultations, Chair. What I say, I'm not the one conducting the consultations. That's under a different ministry. But I'm aware, rather, of consultations already underway.
Who would be leading on that particular?
Chair, the MLSS is the primary ministry that's leading on the identification of beneficiaries, and they are working with MEGJID in terms of the actual locations and so on. Within my ministry, the National Housing Trust has a significant role, and there are also consultations with NLA. Now, I am not in a position to say how they have executed the local level consultations, Chair, but like DG, I'm also of the impression that some consultations are underway. I don't know that they are complete, and I couldn't say specifically who has spoken to whom.
That's probably one of the most sensitive issues for any elected representative in terms of relocation. And I think everybody appreciates you don't want to spend resources putting people back in a flood-prone area, but the need for consultation is important, both for the representatives and for the communities that are going to be affected by that. And, you know, you'll also have to determine whether there is, in addition to rebuild, whether, and this is a very sensitive one, whether the government gets into relocation issues, which is very, very sensitive. But, you know, we obviously don't want people being put in a vulnerable position, aided and abetted by the government.
Chair, what I could comment with that from a broader perspective is that there is a policy intent to relocate not just housing solutions, but townships if it's necessary. So to the extent, for example, that the government is going to set up a new government services center, similar to what you saw happening in St. Thomas, what's happening in Boundbrook, the government will choose a location where it will set up its services. And the hope and intention is that businesses, etc., will cluster around that space and also accommodation. So that is where it's being pushed from the higher level, that government service centers will not be reestablished in vulnerable spaces, and we hope that the townships will then grow around the new spaces. And as I said, there are a number of examples that can.
I mean, it's clearly easier to do it for government services, but you know, if you take Morant Bay, I mean, individuals can occupy the space around where the Morant Bay Urban Center is. Similarly, in Boundbrook. But again, my only caution is the importance of the consultation, given the sensitivity of relocation issues. Relocation issues determine whether people stay inside this house or whether they are outside this house. And that's why they are so sensitive to elected representatives.
Point taken on the consultations, Chair.
All right, let me just go through some of the other findings. The withdrawal from the National Disaster Fund without required consultation. The report indicated that you, Director General, you have taken steps to ensure that that doesn't happen. Can you just update us on what is being done in that regard?
So just to be clear on the consultation you're reading.
All right, so let me just read what the finding says. Section 40 of the DRM Act requires the Financial Secretary to consult the National Disaster Fund Committee before approving withdrawals from the National Disaster Fund. However, at the time, the Director General of ODPM requested $350 million for hurricane relief efforts. No committee had been appointed. The Financial Secretary subsequently approved the withdrawal. So with a committee in place, that would take care of that?
Indeed, Chair.
Okay. The non-publications of the emergency contracts, you have done 9 out of 10. Is there any reason why the one outstanding contract from Supplier 6 has not been published?
The one outstanding matter, Chair, concerns a supplier who is not on the GoJev website, on the platform, sorry. So but that contract was reported in the quarterly reports to the IC. I can't recall specifically know why he isn't registered, but we have had some discussions with the contractor, trying to encourage them to register on the site.
Okay. The procurement of Starlink initiated by ministerial instruction. Going forward, what is the policy on whether it is Starlink, whether it is other equipment that is required? Huh? Sorry, what you said, Member Clerk?
So, Chair, we do intend to follow the prescribed procurement procedures going forward concerning procurement matters.
Yeah, I noticed that there is, of the 200 Starlink, I read where, based on the AG's audit, 80 remain unused, still in the possession of the Commissioner's office. Is it that they are derelict? Is it that there's an issue with them? What is it? Because that's close to 50%.
Sorry, so through you, Chair, not that I'm tracking that they're not derelict. I'm not sure. So it's more than 200 Starlinks that were handed over to the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Now, in terms of that 8080 you speak of, by way of context, we have to understand that as we progressed in the initial response and sort of recovery phase, as well, that perhaps that some of the requirements would have been lessened. I'm not sure prescriptively.
I don't think that could be the case. Not in the, and again, there are members here from affected areas. Absolutely couldn't be the case. Certainly not in the, because in some areas, they had no light, so they wouldn't have telecom provision. So I would say at least for the first 6 to 7 months after the hurricane, there would have absolutely been a need for these devices to be deployed, whether it to be post office, police station, schools, etc. So that couldn't be the reason why they weren't deployed. Not a lack of demand or a need. And in fact, there are still some areas that as of today would still require devices outside of the very urban centers.
Well, just to indicate as well, it's not only 200 that were, 200 were procured through us, but I mean the sum total is upwards of 700 that were brought into the system and deployed.
I understand the explanation, but we are talking about the 200 here. Close to 50% of them is unused, and as the chairman indicated, I just don't understand why.
So,
were they issued to the JCF for storage or for the use?
No, so based on the policy directives, they were handed over to the JCF, and they would have been responsible for the disbursement, storage if necessary, of the items.
But who would make the decision about where they would be deployed? Would it be you or the PM?
No, that wasn't a matter for us to handle. This was through MSET.
It was what?
Through the Ministry of Science.
Okay, so ODPM didn't have any say in terms of where the deployment took place? Okay.
But to follow up on that question though, the 200 or upwards of 200 that were distributed to the JCF, was it for particular personnel from the JCF, or the JCF could have?
So broadly speaking, all the Starlinks that would have come through either being procured by the ODPM or that have been donated to the GOJ were prescriptive to matters of building resilience and maintaining some form of command and control to the national system. So for example, there would have been cases where MPs, councillors, police stations, Jamaica Fire Brigade, outpost, the ODPM itself, and other MDs would have benefited from the disbursement of Starlink devices. And so that's how that modality in terms of disbursement would have occurred.
Would you have information now as to whether or not any of those entities that you referenced just now were without the device during that particular period?
I would be able to find records, those which would have been shared with us.
Post? or
Exactly.
during.
Yeah.
Yes, Member Brown, go ahead.
Yes, Commander Gale indicated that there are more than, well, the 200 is what was procured
Yes.
by ODPEM, and you have advanced that there were many more, that those are donated or what? So could we get, probably not now, but because hopefully there's, of those that were not purchased or procured by ODPEM, there's not a similar portion that has been parked somewhere. So through you, Chair, could we get a fuller picture? You have volunteered that information that the 200 is just what was procured. Yes, a fuller picture of the total quantity of Starlink devices.
How they've been deployed.
Yes, and how they were deployed.
Chair, just to be clear on your request, is this to be directed to the Telecommunications Ministry? That would have, or because we,
Well, did they come
we would
through,
have to.
Did they come through ODPM?
No, Chair. So they, I'll let DG speak further, but the Ministry's responsibility for telecommunications would have been leading on the matter. To the extent that it was in a disaster situation, then some of the funds controlled by ODPEM would have been applied to some of those that are paid for. But in terms of the arrangement for donations and that sort of thing, it was treated as a telecommunications matter. So I was just trying to see clarification on your request for an update, whether
So you're doing a shaggy, it wasn't you.
No, Chair. I will take responsibility for everything I can speak to. Chair, if you ask me to provide information, I will ask my sister ministry to provide it to me, and I'll provide it to you.
Yes, sir.
But subject to a point that was made earlier by a member, I wasn't sure if when you mentioned that you request some information, whether the committee will seek it from the source, or if you're asking me to do that intervention, and I just wanted clarity.
All right, so in the first case with the Information Commissioner, that falls under your ministry.
Exactly.
No, the only reason it came up, the Director General indicated that there were close to 700 Starlink devices. So the member really was saying, okay, since it's not just the 200 that were bought with the 12.2 million, there were 700. The member, and I would want to know how those were deployed and whether all of the 700, whether those were gifts, whatever, how those were deployed. That's what we're asking. Now you're saying it didn't fall under ODPM, it fell under the Ministry of Telecoms or Transport, etc. Yeah, so that's the information that the committee would want to know, because you see, if you look at 200 and 80 are still unused, then without more information, everybody going to say, why not sit down on the device then, when there are so many places that need it? So the Director General said there are about 700 others that were brought in or came into the country, and so it would be useful to know how those were deployed. That's the context.
So we're so guided, Chair. Just what I was indicating is that at the point, based on the policy directive, I could give an account for Starlink devices that were bought by ODPEM and where they were deployed to in terms of the actual deployment station. I could also speak to what numbers were donated and would have been consigned through the ODPEM to be handed over to the agency that would have had the remit to have them deployed. Now, I can't speak to whether or not other Starlinks outside of those numbers would have been received by other entities for GOJ purpose and sent to the distribution line. So I just wanted to make that very clear distinction.
Okay.
So if 500 were consigned to ODPEM, they would have gone to the agency designated by the other ministry for the deployment or disbursement of those devices.
Okay. All right. Let me just ask a question. I mean, given that we are in just being proactive, and we are in a hurricane season. Do the 80 that are at the commissioner's office, do you know whether those are functional units that can be deployed or can be deployed at short notice if there's another weather event in a week or two? Who are you in a position to provide an update on those 80 devices that are still in storage?
No, I'm not in a position to provide any great detail on the devices. What I will commit to is to having further discussions with the ministry regarding the positioning in terms of perhaps what we were trying to do was a just-in-time sort of contract around these devices. Because otherwise, based on what we've been looking at thus far, we'd have to continually pay for all these devices to be activated year-round. From our end, we were trying to sort out having a just-in-time agreement where we could have them switched on operationally just in time for the events. But we'll have some discussions with the other ministry to see.
So how far are we down the wicket in terms of developing that?
So for us on the ODPEM side and the ones we have control over, the just-in-time matter for us, it requires significantly more discussions with the service provider. What we've reverted to is causing for, during the hurricane season, a sort of a monthly approach to the ones that we have, which we have in our possession about 55 of these Starlink devices.
Okay. All right, I see Member Miller, then Member Bunton.
The purchase of the Starlink devices, in your response to the Auditor General, you indicated that the withdrawal was part of the $350 million authorized by the Financial Secretary. However, in the Auditor General's response, they're not seeing where this was included in the $350 million. Can you explain why they're explain this discrepancy?
So if I recall correctly, what I was seeking to explain was that we did, I'd have to find the passage here, it would have appeared in the latter portion of the report to me that there might have been another drawdown of $12.5 million. That was not the case. The $12.5 million came from the initial withdrawal, well, the only withdrawal for the last season of $350 million. If we look at the pool of funds and the categories around which the approval was granted, there wouldn't have been a program area that said Starlink devices. But the funds would have come from the National Disaster Fund resources and directly from the $350 million.
So is there documentation to show that it was included in this initial drawdown? I noticed that the Auditor General's verification only points to two letters, October 28th and 30th, but nothing separate for this $12.5 million.
No, so there was no separate withdrawal for the $12.5 million. No, ma'am. So what have occurred once permissions were given, we would have cause for monies to the tune of $350 million to be in an operational account. It was from that fund that we had expended for the procurement of the Starlink devices.
So there is documentation to show that that's what.
Yes, so on our requisition documents and so on, it would have said take from the National Disaster Fund.
Okay.
Member Bunton.
Yes, under key finding 4, we see a statement that the procurement for these Starlink devices was initiated by a letter from the Minister of Energy, Transport, etc. on November 13th. That was about 2 weeks or so after the hurricane had hit. And I recall myself a couple days after the hurricane trying to purchase from a vendor some Starlink devices, and I was told, you're out of luck because the JDF has just taken whatever we had. But I'm surprised that an entity like ODPEM, which is experienced in disaster responses, had good notice of this particular hurricane, but generally speaking, has experience in hurricane disruption of communications, etc. Why would you not have a standard pre-positioning of Starlink devices at certain, the ones that you did after the hurricane, even if you don't activate them, because as you say, you may not want to incur the monthly fee on a year-round basis. But it's easy to activate these. These are online activations. But you would want the devices to be pre-positioned, just as how we pre-position heavy equipment to clear roadways, you know, the NWA, etc. Why would we have waited until after the hurricane to be procuring and distributing these devices? It would seem to me that this does not reflect preparedness. This reflects reactiveness. And I thought that the whole raison d'etre for ODPEM was to anticipate and prepare for disasters and the emergency management thereof.
Chair, through you. So there were gaps, and I believe we have clearly identified those gaps, and steps are being taken to have those rectified.
Mr. Chairman, that must be the euphemism of the year. There were gaps. But I know that Commander was not in charge of ODPEM at the time, so I won't press him. But I must say that even the preparedness by the JDF, who were scrambling around to procure Starlink devices, I think was inadequate. And it seemed inconsistent even with the JDF's own performance in earlier disasters where I have been a representative and seen their responsiveness.
I'm going to segue from that into another issue, which I really have a pet peeve as a member of parliament, and this relates to shelters and how shelters are managed. So on the eve of the hurricane, there are a number of shelters in my constituency. I reached out to ODPEM in one particular area which is flood prone. Couple of cots were provided. I inquired about food items, but I was told at the time they would wait until post-hurricane to deal with it. How are we going to address the issue of shelters? We appoint shelter managers who are volunteers, who then come under tremendous pressure to provide all kinds of items. When they come under pressure, you know who they turn to? The members of parliament to say, I'm at this shelter, or one cut there, we're not enough food, etc., etc. But a whole heap of people are here. The waiting post the hurricane to then provide it, it just never happened. And then the pressure falls on the MP to try and deal with something for which we have no resources. The poor shelter managers, poor meaning just the pressure that they are under to manage, it is an impossibility. There has to be a review as to how we staff shelters, equip them going forward. I mean, that has to be one of the, and I'm in an area that was not badly affected, right? So I can imagine how bad it would be in areas that were badly affected. But that system, as it is now, does not work. It can't work. It must be reviewed. You know, I even wonder whether those persons can remain as volunteers, or you need some other arrangement, because many of them just get frustrated. They went over and beyond the call of duty, but they're just frustrated by the lack of resources. So is that an area that is being reviewed going forward in terms of how you're going to treat with shelters?
Chair, so we are looking, so a number of fixes we have to apply to the circumstance of how we manage shelters. We're already having a very keen look at the shelter regulations. That process is ongoing. But I'll rather segue now into the more operational effects of it. But I'll also indicate that outside of the season, outside of an event, the shelters are managed really through the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development. We support that as an operational fact. What we would have done before the start of this hurricane season, would have had discussion with the municipal corporations, would have written to them, would have caused for them to conduct their own needs analysis around their particular spaces, and then revert to us with their needs list. We are currently, even today as we speak, more deliveries are going out to bring to them items for pre-positioning. They would have to deploy those from the local level as the situation dictates in the particular crisis they would find themselves in. So that we are remedying that process. Will it cause for us for no complaints to be had? I can't promise that at the moment, but once this delivery cycle, which concludes on the 31st of this month, we'll do another request out to the municipal corporations to inform us again of what are their particular needs, bearing in mind as well that the municipal corporations also have their own remit under which they will also look and also procure items for this sort of pre-positioning of kit and equipment as they treat the disasters at the parish/local level.
One of the responses I got when I asked about the cuts, and I won't say who said it, the person was, well, if we send too much cut there too early, then I'm going to take the cut them, right? And I wasn't dismissive of it because it might be a reality, but then, after you have a disaster of that nature and 50 people coming out of the shelter and you only have 2 or 3 cut, it don't make sense because nobody has and certainly in my era, in the corporate era, we weren't affected badly. There are no resources that would be deployed to such an area. So while I understand the balance, I think it went too much on the side of caution and just left those shelter managers ill-equipped to respond to the dangers and the amounts of persons who went into those shelters, totally ill-equipped to respond.
So Chair, how I'd respond to that? We have engaged with international partners and local partners around one of the larger issues is what percentage of the population would we be able to outfit with disaster relief kit and equipment in the event of a circumstance. So we're working through those programmatic areas and also developing the funding model around it, and this will also incorporate the NDF and its committee. What we're also doing for this season and already started, we've done a series of trainings for shelter managers. The Ministry of Local Government, albeit I don't want to speak for them, I know are doing other efforts to cause a better management of the shelters at the local level. Whilst it is that we don't want an event anytime soon, I do believe in the next time we should be called upon to respond, we should see significantly better management at the local level and also for the resourcing at the local level.
Okay. I remember Miller.
I want to go back to the procurement of the Starlink devices. Why was procurement initiated by ministerial instructions instead of by the Director General?
So, Chair, what I would indicate is that the particular minister and ministry, and partly given his role, they would have done an assessment. They would have cause for some actions to be taken relevant to a need that they would have assessed. The ODPEM was then brought in to support the procurement of the devices.
You will agree that this is in contravention to the Public Procurement Act, that it is the Director General who ought to initiate and not the Minister.
I believe the act, the relevant act, does indicate that the head of entity should cause for that to occur.
The delay in the documentation of the procurement, I believe 5 days after it was done, that the documentation for the procurement was done. Would you agree with me that this erodes public trust and transparency of the ODPEM?
Through you, Chair, I believe that the process would have undertaken would have caused for the public to see a body which is acting upon a critical demand at the time, given the particular circumstances.
The retrospective documentation and preparation.
I believe if we examine the records, 200 Starlink devices were procured, and it is such that the records reflect that 200 would have been procured.
Do you have controls in place in how does your, let me rephrase, how does your procurement process operate do they meet, have a procurement meeting to determine how they acquire items? What is in place currently?
So we do have a procurement committee in place. The matters concerning values of procurement under certain levels are treated with by the relevant officers. But for larger procurements, particularly as we look to kit out and establish disaster stores, those will definitely go through some significant considerations at my level, having had a look at what is available in stores, the matters for pre-positioning disbursements and so on before we conclude on what is required to backfill our stores.
Member Brown?
Just a quick question. You indicated in responding to the chairman, that there's a lot of preparatory work. There's pre-positioning, working with the local authorities. You're actually deploying stuff to the various municipalities, etc. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best readiness, where would you say ODPEM is now in terms of readiness for this current season that has just started?
I believe when I spoke at the National Disaster Risk Management Council meeting and indicated the state of readiness, we would have indicated that we are operational and we're ready to respond to disasters. And that suggests that we're also continually enhancing our capabilities to respond. I don't know I necessarily want to give us a 1 to 10 rating because that is also prescriptive to the scale of the event. It's very different, a burial response from, something which is potentially a category 6, which will overwhelm most systems. So it has to be, I guess, cautioned against that sort of a context. But we're well in the operational range, that 7 to 8 life cycle.
Sorry, before you continue, again, for the PS, it would be useful for there to be dialogue with the representatives about the expectations of ODPM. So, for example, we are in a hurricane season. What is it that you are doing? You said you are sending stuff out to shelters, pre-positioning stuff. I would want to know in my constituency that I don't have a repeat of the same issue with the shelter example I gave before, and I was not an area that was badly affected. So I think that communication is important. Certainly, I don't know if colleagues on my side are aware of what you're doing, and so it would be important because we become the first point of call whenever there is an issue.
Yeah, and Chair, that's why I asked the question in terms of getting that sort of, clarity, because the Commander Gale indicated earlier that a lot of the gaps that have been identified, you indicated quite, we appreciate that response in where you said that many of those gaps will not reoccur. So you're on record as saying that. So I just wanted to go as a little, just to understand in this context, where are we? You say you're unwilling to give a score with my rating, but just to understand where are we in terms of the readiness, bearing on the fact that you said that a lot of these gaps confidently will not reoccur if we were to face whatever scale you have indicated.
Chair, before I hand back to DG, I'm very happy for your call, and maybe, Chair, through your office, we could get more participation where structures are in place for local input and local representation, because there are some gaps in the systems and structures that support the national effort. You know, the structures at the local level are not always fully represented. And so I'm really very happy.
No, they're not. They're not at
for
all.
Your call.
I mean, let's not be diplomatic. They're not. So
yes.
What I would want to know, if I have 5 shelters, I would want to know that ODPM is responsible for putting, let's say, 10 cots in this place. You have some food, some basic food packages pre-positioned, because again, it's the MP that the shelter managers call at 9 o'clock in the night when them say, not there. Right? So even though we're not facing any imminent threat, let us know from now what you are responsible for, what the local authority may be responsible for, so that at least we have the knowledge and the information.
Yeah, so.
With your permission.
All right, go ahead.
I don't know if it's because ODPEM was previously in the Minister of Local Government, PS. But the relationship between ODPEM and the ground was through the municipal corporations exclusively. And as MPs, we would have to hear from the councillors what is happening, because there was no direct communication from ODPEM to us as, in a sense, the senior elected representatives in the parish. And what I found was, certainly after Melissa, the MP's office had more capacity and resources to respond than the councillor's office would have. So I think I would really want to support re-looking at the structures to incorporate all the elected representatives, not just the local municipal corporation, even if they are the administrative hub for the pre-positioning of supplies and so on, but to include in the response mechanisms and the information mechanism the elected parliamentary representatives as well. That's just my suggestion.
Thank you, Member, through Chair. My understanding is that there are provisions for the members of Parliament to be included as well, but I will take the point to look again at it. I don't know if DG can add any more fidelity, but I was of the view that the systems below, the structures below the national level are not confined just to the councillors, but that is something we can review, or I don't know, DG, if you can add a point there.
Thank you, PS. Chair, the point we're sort of aiming at is we take the guidance, but at the parish disaster committee level, for us to recall, that is not only the councillors, I believe, who are on that committee, but also the elected members of Parliament. And this is when we are active at the national level, we are communicating directly with the POC at the parish level, and the coordination is occurring at that level. So there is a fully fledged system that causes for us to be informed and participate on the ground in the activities with the relevant agencies as well, which are on the ground, and they come to these meetings. Notwithstanding, we will look at a model to see how we can better communicate more directly with the MPs.
The informal discussion is, I think a couple of MPs here are saying they weren't aware that we were part of that parish disaster committee.
Yes, so the Act prescribes in that way, and I believe it is a clearly efficient model for us to adopt. And we understand in the cases where there's an event, perhaps the MP is busy doing other things, but then the councillors are also representing. and the information gap should not necessarily exist. So we'll have to look back at it. Because one of the things we are doing now is looking back at our NEOC processes. Matter of fact,
what's NEO using a whole acronym?
Sorry, forgive me, Chair. The National Emergency Operations Center and the POC is the Parish Emergency Operations Center. Just 2 weeks ago, we would have started a series of training sessions to look at how the National Center should operate and also how that links into the Parish Center. And then also starting to look now at how that would go down to the community level because it is a 3-tiered system as we have it now. So I would encourage more participation, but at the same time, we need to look at how we, that sort of more direct interface, not having some disparity between what the MPs are doing and what the councillor and the municipal corporation are trying to achieve. And I would also ask that the necessary information on the ground that the MPs would have flow into those committees, but into that committee at the time of the event.
All right, Member Clark has an intervention on this point as a former councillor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, but I won't speak as a former councillor, I will speak as a member of parliament. I do understand that for other parishes, I can't speak for other parishes, but what I do know for St. James was that EOC, St. James EOC, was established, chaired jointly by the Custos and the Mayor. All members of Parliament were members of that committee to include all the entities, government entities, and also private entities which would have been service providers. And we would meet on a weekly basis to give update and to see and to hear the concern of others. We did have a little glitch as it relates to the shelters, but it was quickly ironed out. But I do understand members of Parliament want to be right there, and I can't understand why my colleagues are saying that they weren't invited to their meeting, but weekly. Okay. Even though the group is still active.
All right. Good knowledge to know. Good knowledge to know. All right, Member Miller, and I'm conscious of the time, so pull the mic closer to you. Yeah.
In the findings, it indicates that food items, tarpaulins, water valued 59.6 million were not recorded in the ODPEM's inventory or stores, and upon verification, it remains the same. Why is that so?
There were specifically to that particular 59 million set of equipment, a set of food items or perishables, there was a significant attempts for us to put those on the system. There were significant duplications, if I recall correctly, in the input of those items and how they were batched. Some training has gone underway regarding those, and they should be rectified if not already done. Allow me to verify. To the best of my knowledge, we had put them on the system, but there were duplications and issues with how they were batched into the accounting software.
And that software is the Sage 300?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it now fully operational?
It is fully operational. We need to get more seats on the system and also some training on the system itself. But we have already taken some steps to look more deeply at how we organize our logistics, separate from warehousing matters, and better brought in the accounting side of the agency for some oversight on these matters.
What is the implementation status of the disaster management system, that component of it?
So that component has taken longer than we had originally envisioned, primarily because of the scope of the matter. As it is now, the necessary MOUs have been internally reviewed. There are some significant MOUs given the number of agencies required to make inputs and provide information into the system. The next step is for it to go to the relevant committee of the board. And when the board meets later next month, we do expect that the matters for that to be brought to the board so that we can move the system along. The inventory module is still undergoing testing on the security side. This is something that's been local developed. We would not want for any matters concerning data protection to arise, nor cybersecurity matters. So those matters are being concluded on before that sort of full-sum deployment of that system.
You realize that these deficiencies were identified from 2024. We are in 2026. So I would imagine that you are hastily moving towards correcting these. 2 years, we're 2 years in since.
Ma'am, this is the case. I wouldn't hazard to put a timeline, but we are working feverishly at the matters. I believe you would have seen, just by the verification, some good work already done. And it's the commitment of the agency to continue moving in that direction as we prepare the nation for any other circumstance which should occur.
Commander Gale, I think there are some serious gaps at ODPEM that you as Director General now, we are relying on you to correct those, given that we are going into another, or we are in another hurricane season. We can't afford that kind of disaster that happened with Melissa. Melissa in itself was a disaster. The response was a disaster. And the gaps that are highlighted now, if they're not corrected speedily, then we are heading into another disaster. And I think the ODPEM ought to move speedily to correcting these.
Chair, through you, I just wish to indicate, I believe that robust work, notwithstanding gaps which were identified, was done through the ODPEM and the other coordinating agencies. Notwithstanding the gaps identified, Chair, I do believe the task is mine as the head of the coordinating agency to have these gaps as identified, rectified post-haste.
Okay, thank you. Members, are there any other? Member Clark, I see your mic is on.
Mr. Chairman, I was just about to bring it to your attention that there's another committee that will be sitting in the
I was about to adjourn. So.
You were about to adjourn.
All right, I soon ask you to move for the adjournment. But members, let me thank the Permanent Secretary, the ODPM team, Auditor General, Ministry of Finance. The responses to the audit from the OPM and ODPM are tabled here for dissemination. And our members, our next meeting will be Tuesday, next week, Tuesday at 10 o'clock, where, yes, we agreed that you must look at your correspondence. Yes, we did. The 28th at 10 to respond to the Auditor General's. No, we did. We did a round robin. Remember, we both sent it by email and the physical document was sent to the Parliament. And we agreed on 2 dates, the 22nd and the 28th. We agreed that. Members, listen, I know people want to take their holidays, so do I, but the only dates we could get for the meetings are these dates because the other committees take them. So you have to try your best to come to the meeting. We'll be looking at the Hurricane Melissa Relief Initiative Audit Compliance Audit Report, Financial Management of Donated and National Disaster Funds, and the implementation of the Roof Restoration Project. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Moved by Member Clark, seconded by Member Brown. Have a good afternoon.
little germs do.
Pink eye running belly even flu. Germs can make them happen to you.
Put germs on our manners with these. Cover your mouth when you cough and sneeze. Always wash your hand with water and soap. Keep dirty hands from your eyes and your nose and your mouth. You don't want to be sick, take care. Practice every day, no germs around here. A message from the Ministry of Health.
No matter where in this world I go, I am a Jamaican.
It's festival time again, and we go in search of the soundtrack for our independence celebrations. It's the Jamaica Festival Song Results Show, Saturday, July 25, Randy Williams Entertainment Center, coming live right here on PBCJ, starting 8:30 p.m. So, fling on your big heel boot and come cheer on your favorite song, Festival Noise Again, coming live right here on PBCJ, starting 8:30 p.m. Celebrating 60 years.
Peace begins with us. Every act of kindness, every step towards understanding brings us closer to a brighter tomorrow. Let's choose unity, compassion, and hope. Together, we can build a future where peace reigns.
Brighter tomorrow starting today.
We are crown nation in the Caribbean. Sometimes we facing crisis, but as a nation we're holding strong to make a war.
When remember the nice rundown, pick me a play from the background. Hurricane Melissa from Mountain, governments and more babies must born. We're proud of Jamaica, we have a flag up high, black, green and gold, reach up to the sky.
I am Jamaican, from my bond which is running on my blood, and my heart full of love. I am Jamaican, me destined for greatness, just ask God above.
Ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling-a-ling, to Jamaica, school. Ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling-a-ling, no missy class, hold the plane.
Don't ya nice, don't ya sweet, the country a seed. Eat what we grow, we a grow what we eat. And it make we bring the fastest athlete. Be proud of your culture, we rich in a seed. The island.
This is the land of festivals, where the rhythm calls and the spirit enthralls. This is Jamaica, my Jamaica.
Your mouth happy you, but your teeth happy me, girl. So if you ever cheat, you have to give me back me teeth. No matter where me going at the world, yes I love Jamaica. Here I go. Me love me island breeze, fruit trees, yes I love Jamaica.
BGLC, the regulatory body. We regulate, you play without worry. We regulate, you play. BGLC, fair play when you play. For the fun of the game, you know when they are. BGLC, keep it fair for the player. You play the game and we are the rules that keep everything fair, so the game play better. The Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission. We ensure fairness, integrity and responsible gaming practices. Keep the game fair and fun for everyone. We regulate, you play.
Welcome to Wild World at the San Diego Zoo.
Celebrate the diversity and wonders of the animal kingdom on Wild World. Mondays at 10 a.m. and Wednesdays at noon.
Yo, babes, why me I call you so much time and I not get you? Sorry me lick you again yesterday. Yo, me know me mess up, but I can't wear them something there road and I expect me to react. I know I'm jealous and fool and easy to lose my temper, but call me back here.
Still not get tired.
Hey, girl, think me have to call your phone? You know who you are deal with? You think I want to lick me again next time? Eh?
It doesn't have to be this way. You can leave an abusive relationship. Just call 553-0372. We will help you. Jamaica's first broadcast museum is completely online. The PBCJ Audio Visual Library AVL website houses a curated collection of exhibits ranging from our island nation's greatest tragedies to our proudest triumphs. Explore rare video footage, the evolution of archival equipment, and deep dives into the lives and times of key figures and institutions in Jamaica's storied history. It's a treasure trove for the curious and nostalgic alike. Soon, you will be able to listen to the exhibits as we continue our commitment to enhancing accessibility features. No walls, no boundaries, only rich Jamaican history curated specifically for you, accessible anytime, anywhere, any place. Scan the QR code or visit library@pbcj.com to experience history at your fingertips.
Out of the ashes, Jamaica will rise. With God as our Father, great storms will survive. Our prayers unite us to soar to new heights. With our hearts together, we'll win any fight. We will rise, we will rise. With the strength of a lion, we will rise. We will rise, Jamaica will rise. With the wings of an eagle, we will rise. Our faith has grown stronger in truth and in grace. When challenges face us, we'll never be faced. Our anthem prays boldly to God from above, and He who is faithful shows mercy and love. We will rise, we will rise. With the strength of a lion, we will rise. We will rise, Jamaica will rise. With the wings of an eagle, no matter the season, our sails will remain, and we will rise. We will rise, we will rise. With the strength of a lion, we will rise. We will rise, Jamaica will rise. With the wings of an eagle, no matter the season, our sails will remain, and we will rise. We will rise, Jamaica will rise. With the wings of an eagle, we will rise.
If you no want pop down and fenke, you fi burn mosquito and run with dengue. So no make water settle in open container. For them me breed up under the danger. Usher them out, run them away. Zap them with the zapper and down them with spray. Use mosquito net and mosquito screen. Protect your household, now make them come in. If you no want pop down and fenke, if you burn mosquito and run with dengue. If pain lick your head and your joints and your eye, and you want fever mit and your temperature high, it could be dengue, don't hesitate. See a doctor, don't self